Welcome to the Season 3 finale of Begley's Mailbag here on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY NBA Insider, and we're here to take your questions, Knicks, NBA, whatever you have for me. We're going to start here with my buddy, Robert Cross, and he wants to know about Julius Randle. Do the Knicks still see him as a core piece to their championship aspirations? Does the deal get done? Robert referring to the extension that Randle is eligible for in early August. I'm told that that extension is not at the forefront right now for either the team or Randle. So I would expect at the moment that extension not to happen in August. Maybe something happens, during the season. But, certainly for Julius Randle, I was told that he is very excited about this group. He really thinks this group could be special with Mikal Bridges, and he really is excited about getting healthy and getting back to the court and being with this team. I was told that his rehab is going remarkably well on that surgically repaired shoulder. So yeah, he's excited. He's fired up to get out there. And with regards to the extension, I think Julius knows that the Knicks right now need a backup center. And, he knows that's kind of where the focus is. That's where he wants the focus to be. So that's where it sits with the extension. With regards to, do they feel he's a championship piece? I know there's some people who see what happened in January, the way he played with OG Anunoby, the way the ball moved, the success the Knicks had before Randle got hurt, and they say he can absolutely duplicate that and fit. Others are not as certain. There's several decision makers within the Knicks. People have different opinions on subjects all the time in organizations, so not surprising that there are different opinions here on Randle, but I do think that I know that he is ready to go, kind of chomping at the bit, really loves New York, wants to win in New York, and is looking forward to this season. From my buddy, the Knicks Recap wants to know, you mentioned in a report a few days ago, Knicks were having trade talks for higher salary veteran centers. You know what players they are targeting. Appreciate you. I appreciate you too. And when you say are targeting, I'm hesitant to speak in the present tense just because things can change every 5 minutes in the NBA, and particularly at this time of year. But I will say that Clint Capella, Atlanta, was one big that the Knicks had checked in on. And I don't know kind of how far talks went. I don't know if they're active at this very moment, but they did check in on Capella. And, you can infer that Mitchell Robinson would have probably been in that trade because Capella is a starting center. Or maybe the Knicks would have said Robinson and Capella could be our platoon at center this season. But nonetheless, Capella, higher salaried veteran center that they did check in on. I think the most likely outcome is the Knicks add a backup center and they go into training camp with this group as is. But yeah, they had been active in some trade talks earlier in the offseason. Nothing has happened to date, but there's still a couple months here before training camp, so let's see where it leads. But yeah, Clint Capella, Atlanta, was one name that the Knicks had checked in on, and we'll see where it goes. Got a question from Brooklyn Saints who wants to know, does Jericho Sims have any chance of being the backup to Mitchell Robinson? Could this be his year? I think when you see what the Knicks have done at the backup center position so far, they checked in on Utah with Walker Kessler. I'm sure they've checked in on other players that, we don't know about. They've talked about Nick Richards. And so I think based on that, it's unlikely that Sims goes into the season as the number 2 center. Probably more likely that he goes into the season as the number 3 center if unless the Knicks make a trade and he's involved. I think that's the most likely outcome. Whether he's ready or not, again, I think just based on what you've heard from what the Knicks have been looking at, that tells you how they feel. I mean, if they felt he was ready, I don't think they would be, checking in on different scenarios with backup bigs, but they haven't. So I think that kind of answers your question. But look, maybe nothing happens, and maybe they start the season with Jericho as the backup, and maybe he impresses. I mean, anything's possible. But just based on what you've seen so far this offseason, I would tend to believe that he's more likely to start the year as the number 3 center than the number 2. Got one from Evan Wexel about campaign. He's got a Terry Johnson joke in there, and how much playing time will campaign get? I think that with Payne, the Knicks obviously looking to add a ball handler, Jalen Brunson, to have Payne spell Jalen Brunson at times and have a ball handler in that second unit. Miles McBride, you know, they think of him as an off-ball guard who can handle the ball when needed. So I think that's why you add a campaign. How many minutes is he going to get? I think he's going to get significant minutes in that second unit, be the floor leader for that bench unit, which we would assume would include Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, and maybe McBride. So I think that's where it sits with campaign. He will get consistent minutes. I don't think he would have come here without the idea of getting minutes. I haven't heard that specifically, but it would surprise me because I'm sure he had several suitors out there on the open market. So yeah, Knicks adding a much needed ball handler to the roster, and we will see how things shake out once we get to training camp in the preseason. Got one here from my buddy Knicks Central, who always keeps it entertaining on Twitter. He likes to mix things up. Knicks Central Alex is saying, are the Knicks re-signing Precious Achiuwa? If yes, when will they? If they don't or if they do, does the addition of campaign affect adding backup bigs? With Achiuwa, they've been in touch with him, you know, throughout the offseason. I know other teams have had interest in Precious, and I think, you know, he's got some offers on the table. And so I think in some ways the decision is his, but in some ways I think the Knicks could take the decision out of his hands by offering him a lot of money, because they do have his bird rights. I don't know how high they've gotten on their offers. I would assume they've gotten beyond the veterans minimum. So yeah, it's kind of Precious's decision to make, whether he wants to come back here or go somewhere else. Also, there's a possibility of Precious being in a sign and trade. The Knicks can execute that if they wanted to, maybe it's part of a bigger deal. But I think that with things being up in the air, the Knicks would obviously prefer Achiuwa to come back because he gives them that stability and that depth at a position where they need it. And now, in terms of campaign and what his addition means, I think that this doesn't reflect directly on Miles McBride. I said it after they signed him. I do believe that because they did not want to include McBride in that Mikal Bridges deal. And they didn't have to, ultimately. And they've talked to people about him being, you know, an off-ball guard, again, who can handle the ball. So there's not a lot of overlap there with campaign. The question is, where do the minutes come from? And it's a fair question, and it's something Tom Thibodeau would have to figure out with Dante DiVincenzo and McBride and Josh Hart and campaign. You know, is that a bench lineup that you're comfortable with? Are you comfortable with a 10-man rotation? So these are things that are going to have to work themselves out, and obviously with the Knicks still needing a backup big and there not being that many options on the free agent market, it seems like they would have to go the trade route to acquire that player, the backup big, whoever it might be. And McBride, on a great contract, strong young player, would be someone that I think teams would probably demand of the Knicks in these deals, because teams know that the Knicks, you know, are operating from a position of need where they need to fill this role. So I don't think anybody's going to kind of hand over a quality backup big. The Knicks would have to really put something on the table, and I think McBride would be at the center of what teams would want in return for their backup big. We got one from Daryl Wolf 10. He's asking about the price to trade for a few centers. Walker Kessler, Nick Richards, Jalen Duren. Would a number one and a McBride get it done? With Kessler, we had reported that Utah had said no to a couple teams that had offered 2 firsts. Now, look, not all firsts are created equal. I don't know the value of the firsts that were offered. I don't know the protections on the firsts. So with that being said, you know, they did turn those offers down. So it seems like they would want something significant back for Kessler. Does McBride and a 1 from the Knicks get it done? The Knicks can only trade the picks right now, can only trade the first rounders that they received from Washington and from Detroit, I believe. So those picks, I don't think are going to convey. I don't think they're going to convey as firsts. They'll probably end up as seconds. So I don't think teams like Utah would see them as that valuable. And that's, I think, where it becomes tricky for the Knicks in terms of putting together a trade package. Because Similar with Jalen Duren, Detroit I don't think would give him up for nothing. They drafted him highly. I would think that it would take something significant to get him out of Detroit. And so the Knicks, again, you'd have to be looking at a Miles McBride or another player to include in one of these packages to really sweeten the pot, because, you know, Detroit's just not going to give him up for the picks that the Knicks have right now, or the Knicks can trade right now. And so with Detroit, you know, they are still looking to take on some salary, some unwanted salary. Teams looking to shed salary. So maybe there's a way to work a third team in there. Maybe there's a way for the Knicks to find a pathway there. But it seems like those younger centers on the rookie deals are really going to be tough for the Knicks to pry at this point in the offseason. That'll do it for this edition and this season of Begley's Mailbag. This is the Season 3 finale. We are really looking forward to coming back with you guys Season 4 at some time soon, but I just want to thank everybody for their questions and their contributions. Please keep those coming once we get this started again. It's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to Season 4, and I wish you guys a happy rest of the summer.